I want to tell you about a video game. Not because you need to have played it, you don't, but because what happened to it is one of the most perfectly ironic stories in recent memory. A story so on the nose that if you pitched it as a piece of fiction, someone would tell you it was just too convenient. The game is called Hi-Fi Rush. It's about a guy who gets turned into a product by a corporation, labeled a defect when he stops being useful, and gets hunted down to protect the brand. And then the studio that made it got shut down by one of the biggest corporations in the world because it stopped being useful enough. This is that story. And by the end of it, I want to make you care. Not just about this game, even though I really think you should, but about what it means when we let the machine decide what's worth keeping and what isn't. So if you at all care about good art, then this video is for you. Because it's about Hi-Fi Rush, the game about corporate greed that was killed by corporate greed. Hi-Fi Rush came out in January 2023. No marketing, no build-up, Microsoft just dropped it. Here's the game. It's out right now, and it was out on Game Pass, which, as a person who was paying for Game Pass, I was, the normal amount of excited. And playing it for the first time, it's pretty obvious it's unlike anything else. You play as Chai, a self-described future rock star who is, by every measurable metric, a disaster. He's broke, talentless by his own admission, and so desperate for a shot at something better that he signs up for a corporate cybernetic enhancement program run by a company called Vandelay Technologies. The pitch is simple. Vandelay makes you better, stronger, more capable. In return, you join their ecosystem. You become part of the product. As you could probably guess, it goes wrong immediately. During the procedure, Chai's music player gets accidentally fused to his chest, and because of this, he starts to perceive the world through rhythm. Every footstep lands on a beat. Every punch, every explosion, every mechanical arm swinging at his head, all of it syncs to the music playing in his chest. Vandelay's systems scan him and spit out a result. Defect. Not dangerous, not broken beyond repair, effective. As in, failed to meet the standard output, failed to perform as expected, failed to be a useful enough product. Vandelay Technologies is the villain of Hi-Fi Rush, and the game is not subtle about what it's doing. The campus looks like if Apple and Amazon had a baby and raised it on productivity manifestos. There are motivational slogans everywhere, efficiency metrics on every wall. The employees don't have names, they have designations. Their whole identity is their function inside the machine. The corporation isn't evil in a classic mustache-twirling way. It's evil in the way that real corporations are evil, through systems. Vandelay doesn't hate Chai, it's not personal. Vandelay just has a process, and Chai doesn't fit the process. And the process says defects get removed. And here's the thing that makes Hi-Fi Rush work as a satire rather than just the vibe of it. The game's mechanics are about finding the rhythm inside a dehumanizing system and using it against that system. Chai is more powerful because of the defect. The thing that made him not fit the mold is the exact thing that lets him fight back. The corporation tried to standardize him and instead created the one thing that could bring it down. An important part about Hi-Fi Rush is that as Chai fights his way up through Vandelay's hierarchy, he goes through a series of boss fights. Each one is a department head, and each one is a different flavor of how a corporation rots from the inside. There's the enforcer, the one who believes so completely in the system that she stopped asking whether the system is worth believing in. And then there's the head of PR who has a lot to say, but none of it really means anything because it's just there to control the brand image. There's a visionary who started with genuine ambition and got so drunk on power that they forgot what they were building towards. The game is making a specific argument here. It's not saying corporations are run by monsters. It's saying they're run by people who have each, individually, made a series of compromises. And the sum of those compromises is monstrous. Nobody at Vandelay woke up and decided to be a villain. They just followed the logic of the system they were inside. And the system said growth, efficiency, removing the things that don't fit in. It should sound familiar at this point, but we'll get back to that. So, you have an idea of the basic plot, the workings of this game, but before I move on to the real world and what happened on our side of reality, I want to spend a minute on something that matters for the rest of this video. Look at how this game looks. Every frame of Hi-Fi Rush looks like a person made it. Not generated, not templated, made with opinions and taste and 1,000 small decisions that add up to something that feels completely alive. The whole aesthetic is almost aggressively human. The textures have brushstrokes, the animations feel physical, and the music isn't just a backdrop, it's a structural element woven into every mechanic, and also can kind of feel like a James Gunn movie where the producer's just trying to show you his playlist. You can feel the hundreds of people who made specific choices about specific things because they cared about it. And I think this makes what happens in real life even crueler, because you can tell that this isn't some EA Sports Game of the Year, Call of Duty, Fortnite collab garbage. This is a passion project, and one that you can feel the second you put your hands on the controller playing this game. Hi-Fi Rush was made by a studio called Tango Gameworks. Tango was founded in Tokyo in 2010 by Shinji Mikami, one of the most important game designers alive. He created Resident Evil. He made God Hand. He's the kind of person who gets a studio funded based on the strength of his name alone. A Christopher Nolan type, if you will. Which is exactly what happened. They were acquired almost immediately by ZeniMax Media and spent their first decade making survival horror games, Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. Good games, critical successes, but not the kind of thing that breaks through to a mainstream conversation. And then in 2021, ZeniMax got acquired by Microsoft. 7,500 employees. Every studio, and the IPs, for $7.5 billion. Tango Gameworks, the Japanese studio of around 100 people, became part of the largest gaming company in the world, and 2 years later, they made Hi-Fi Rush. Now, Hi-Fi Rush was a hit. Not a hit in the way that Call of Duty is a hit for putting Nicki Minaj in the game, but it was critically acclaimed, genuinely beloved. 3 million players by mid-2023, BAFTA for Best Animation, the Best Audio Design at the Game Awards, serious accolades. People who played it talked about it in a way that it wasn't just, oh, this is a fun game, but I can't believe this exists. By every creative measure, by the measure of did you make something that mattered to people, Hi-Fi Rush was an unqualified success. So naturally, everybody saw it coming when the studio got shut down by Microsoft in 2024. The announcement came alongside 3 other studio closures. Arcane Austin, who made Prey and Dishonored, AlphaDog Games, Roundhouse Studios, all of them gone in a single press release. The gaming community was furious. The response was immediate and overwhelming. How do you shut down a studio that made one of the better received games of the last 5 years? How does that math? And the cherry on top is then the next day, just the next day, Matt Booty, I'm not lying, his last name is Booty, president of game content for Microsoft, gave a speech about what Xbox needed more of. He said they needed smaller games that gave them prestige and awards. The studio that had just made him a small game that gave him prestige and awards had been shut down 24 hours earlier. I'm just gonna let you sit in that because it seems just a little bit too ironic to be true. I don't know how you say any of that out loud and not hear what you're actually saying. So here's what I think was actually happening. Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, has one defining legacy, and it's not gaming, it's AI. The OpenAI investment, Copilot. The complete reorientation of Microsoft as a company around artificial intelligence infrastructure. And in early 2024, as that pivot was accelerating, as Microsoft was committing billions to AI development, they cut 4 game studios. Remember what I said about how this game looks? Hi-Fi Rush looks the way it does because human beings made extremely specific decisions about extremely specific things that they cared about. That costs money. That costs time. That costs a headcount of 100 plus people who need salaries and offices and freedom to spend 4 years making something that might not turn a massive profit. Under a growth model, under a model where you're not asking, is this good, but is this scaling, a studio like Tango is overhead. A contained experience with no live service component, no battle pass, no roadmap, no V-Bucks. It's just a game that people finish and they put it down feeling satisfied and complete. They don't have to come back to it every single day. But in the language of a corporation optimizing for AI investment and quarterly returns, that's a defect. And you know what happens to defects. Not proud of it, but I'm man enough to admit it. I've been a Debbie Downer this video, which I think is fair given everything I've told you. But there is a silver lining, it's not entirely cooked. Roughly 3 months after Microsoft shut down Tango Gameworks, a South Korean publisher called Krafton brought them back. Krafton made PUBG, and if you don't know what PUBG is, it's the big battle royale before Fortnite was the big battle royale. That was mainly about getting in a car and running people down or beating them to death with a frying pan.
Yes! Get stuffed with a pen, mate!
So, intellectually similar content. But they're still a corporation. They got shareholders and earning calls and a bottom line just like everybody else, but their CEO was asked why they acquired Tango, what the business case was, whether Hi-Fi Rush 2 was going to be a major revenue driver. He said more or less that he didn't think it was going to make them any money. And they did it anyway because they wanted to support the team and maintain the legacy. Tango Gameworks reopened. Around 50 of the original staff came back. They have a new logo, a new Tokyo office. They're working on something new. The game that got killed by corporate greed got saved by people who decided that good art was worth caring about even when the spreadsheet said otherwise. Not an American tech giant pivoting to AI. South Korean publisher that just liked what these people made. Okay, let's put it all together. You know the details. Hi-Fi Rush is about a corporation that absorbs people, optimizes them, and discards them the moment they stop fitting the model. About a system so focused on growth and efficiency that it's lost any sense of what it was actually for. And it's about what happens when someone who doesn't fit, someone the system just calls a defect, refuses to be deleted. Tango Gameworks made the game inside a corporation that absorbed them, optimized them, and discarded them the moment they stopped fitting the model. It was a system so focused on quarterly returns and AI investment that it couldn't see the value of what it was actually holding. And then they got saved because they refused to disappear and because someone decided the work mattered. The game predicted its own story. Not because Tango knew what was coming, but because the thing they were describing, the logic of a corporation that cannot value anything it cannot scale, isn't fiction. It's the operating system of the industry they were working inside, and one we see at large in our own society every day. But here's what I keep going back to. Hi-Fi Rush is a complete thing. It has a beginning, a middle, an end. It makes you feel something specific. It was made by people who had a vision and executed it with extraordinary craft, and then let it go. There wasn't a live service hook, no season pass. Just, here's the thing we made, we hope you love it. And that model, the model of making something genuinely good and trusting that goodness to be enough, is increasingly incompatible with how the biggest players in the industries operate. If there's any sort of commentary to gather here about where we find ourselves in real life, in whatever stage of late-stage capitalism we find ourselves on Dante's Inferno, it's that good isn't good enough for the machine. The machine needs growth, it needs scale, the machine needs something it can keep selling you forever. And Hi-Fi Rush is beautiful, it's complete, and it's so distinctly human that it'll never be that. But here's the thing. It exists. You can play it right now. Tango Gameworks exists. They're making something new. And the reason both of those things are true is because enough people cared about the game and about the team, about the idea, the craft, the vision, the genuine creative ambition that they thought it was worth protecting even when it's not 100% profitable. That's not nothing. In an industry increasingly shaped by corporations that treat creativity as an input and profit as the only output, it actually kind of means everything. The machine designated Tango as a defect. And luckily, some people in Seoul cared. So, good art survived. And I think that's the beauty here. Persistence. Now, you might have noticed by now, I haven't really told you too many details about the game, and that's on purpose. I want you to go play it. maybe for yourself, for Tango, if not to just support good art. It's usually about $30, but most of the time it's on sale for like 15 or sometimes $10. I promise you it is so worth it, and if you don't have a way to play it, go listen to the soundtrack. It's incredible. Lastly, I want to say thank you for listening. I mean, you listened to me rant about something I care a little bit too much about for a little bit too long, but you should be grateful I could be a white guy with a podcast instead of a YouTube channel. So, all jokes aside, thank you, and never stop supporting good art.